So yesterday, as I told the people in Ashland, that this part of St. Paul's second letter to the Corinthians is addressing his desire for the Corinthians to contribute to the church in Jerusalem. So we can only guess what happened in Jerusalem, but I guess kind of just putting the pieces together, many people in Jerusalem are suffering maybe a little bit more of a persecution, maybe not in the sense of a physical, but maybe they are, but maybe more in terms of, you believe in the Christ, well, you don't have a job anymore, or, we're taking your property type of thing. And so there's a lot of people who are suffering in terms of material things, not having the basic needs and necessities of life, trying to figure out when our next meal is going to come, that type of mentality. The Corinthians were a very wealthy city. Many of the big shots in the Roman Empire, the big generals and stuff, like they lived in Corinth when they retired. It was like their summer home type of thing. It was a port city. So again, a lot of exchanges, a lot of material transactions, a lot of wealth in the city. And so many of these Corinthians were a little bit more well off. And again, St. Paul, as we continue in chapter 9 of the second letter, is kind of wrapping up his appeal, the bishop's annual appeal, maybe that's what we'll call it, for the church in Jerusalem. And so what St. Paul wants to give the mindset, first of all, he doesn't want them to give because he's forcing them to. Okay, so he says this line here, has each must do is already determined without sadness or compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. First of all, it's almost like St. Paul, if they don't want to give, then St. Paul doesn't want them to give, that type of mentality. He only wants them to give if they're fully entrenched into the love of God. And St. Paul then, for the rest of this first reading, explains why that should be the case. He quotes at the end, or towards the end of this reading, he scatters abroad, he gives to the poor, his righteousness endures forever. St. Paul is quoting Psalm 112 here, okay, about the righteous man given to the poor and his righteousness endures forever. Quoting Psalm 112, that's important because you also got to know Psalm 111, the psalm right before it. The two go together. In Psalm 111, it's all about how God blesses those in need. And so the mentality, the mindset that St. Paul wants to put these Corinthians in is that first and foremost, recognize how God has blessed you. Okay? That what you have in your self-sufficiency and your wealth, yeah, it is part of your work and your achievements, but it's also a blessing from God. And the way that blessings from God works is that as we receive the blessings, they're not meant to be hoarded for ourselves, but are meant to be given out. And so again, he wants, in all of his letters, he always wants them to take on the mind and attitude of Jesus Christ, who is nothing but a gift and giver. Okay, the giver is the gift, but it's just nothing but an outpouring of his blessings, his graces, his divine assistance upon us. We receive it, and then we're meant to be the blessing to others. As I said before many times, a lot of times we are the answers to other people's prayers. That God uses us and our generosity and our imitation and living and dwelling and meditating on how God has blessed us. Our natural response is then just to give out to others according to our means, as St. Paul says earlier in this letter. And so that's, I guess that's it. You're being enriched in every way for all generosity, which through us produces thanksgiving to God. So be a giver, be a blessing in the way that God has given and has blessed us. May God bless you.